Hi, friends. Welcome to another section of With All Your Rights. With you, Attorney Cobo Estrella, here to give you some information regarding, the laws here in Puerto Rico, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Today, I'd like to touch briefly on torts. Usually the concept of negligence, breach of duty of care. Why do I bring this? Because in Puerto Rico, in civil cases, in state court, we do not have the right to a jury trial. It's mostly it's a bench trial before a judge. But you still have to prove two basic elements. The element that there was a negligent, and there was also damages that were caused. Now, what are the elements of these? This was previously Article 1802 of the previous civil code in Puerto Rico was basically the rule of law for tort. Now it's a new civil code in Puerto Rico. It's Article 1536, I believe. Let me double check. 1536 is a new article that basically says that whenever a person causes or breaches a duty of care, whether by act or omission, and causes harm or damages, harm to another person, that person will be responsible to compensate somehow for the damages as a result of their breach of duty of care. Basically, that's it. Now, what are the elements of tort cause of action? Basically, first, there must be an act or omission, what's considered a breach of a duty of care. Then there has to be a harm or damages caused to another person. And then there has to be a causal relationship between the act and omission, and the harm to the other person. It has to be a direct relationship. One is a result of the other. These are basically the three elements of a tort case. You have to prove first that there was a negligence. Now that could be or a breach of duty of care. That could be two ways. That could be either an intentional, which is what we call here culposo, or it could be the result of criminal conduct, driving recklessly, or it could be unintentional, which would be purely negligence, which would be, you do something where you are part of that standard of care that you would expect given the specific circumstances, and it does not take into consideration the possibility of any possible harm that could result as a result of that conduct. And then that's the other type of it. Could be intentional and unintentional, which should be strictly negligence, and it causes obviously harm to another person. Now, we use this standard of Puerto Rico, what's considered the person that's prudent, and it's responsible. Basically, the standard applicable to this situation, because the judge is going to look at the circumstances surrounding the events, the acts and omission. Was there a duty of care? Was there a breach of that duty of care? Was that standard? Was that something that people would expect in that particular circumstances? That's what the judge will look at. Now, you should consider extra contractual, because there, between private parties, usually there's no contractual relationship previously. So these are things that happen between people that not necessarily know each other. And, obviously one does something or doesn't do something that causes a harm to another person. Important. What's the quantum of proof for these civil cases is the preponderance of the evidence. It means that if you are the plaintiff, you're bringing forth your claim, you have to prove, you have to have more evidence than the other party to prove the elements, which is that there was a duty of care, that there was a breach of that duty of care, and there was a harm. And these harms have to be real, not something that you speculate. Oh, I almost have an accident. We almost had had damages that are quantifiable. And I'll explain to you in a minute this why. Because there are basic three types of damages that you can ask for. You can ask for monetary damages, which would be quantifiable, loss of income, the loss of earnings. You can have what's called pain and suffering, mental anguish. And you can have now, with the new article in the new Civil Code 1538, now introduced into the Puerto Rico Tort Act, you can have punitive damages, which are basically to punish intentional conduct, which is in reckless disregard for your rights, and to dissuade other parties, other potential individuals from engaging in that type of conduct that causes obviously a harm. Now, understand that in Puerto Rico, in opposed to different states that have perhaps a 2-year time of statute of limitation, Puerto Rico only has a 1-year statute of limitation from the moment that the acts occurred and the moment you also know who the responsible party is. And you have to, between that period of time, a year, begin your civil action, You can either send in a special extrajudicial request letter or demand letter, but it has to comply with specific requirements of the Puerto Rico law, or you can begin your civil action, and that interrupts that statute of limitation. And it's very important that you consult this with your attorney, because he'll be or she will be able to assess the merits of your claim, understand the situation, tell you what the proofs that you will need. Important that you document everything contemporaneously as events occur, so you have as much evidence as you have to prove your case, and you go before your attorney and you discuss it, so that way the attorney can determine, what the appropriate action that can take, and the different causes of action that could be included under torts law in Puerto Rico. And now, as we say here, know your rights so you can go to court and exercise all your rights.